Yo guys, what is up? It's Teach here, coming at you again with another video, and we are here on the Therizinosaurus. Now, this is part of our Dino a Day review series, and boy is this guy important. Now, if you've never tamed one before, because it's a pain in the butt to tame your first couple of these things, it is incredibly important to tame one of these. Now, the biggest reason why that is because, well, quite simply put, they are overpowered in almost every way, shape, and form. They can be used in boss fights, actual PvP combat, general harvesting, and they're like the best at just about 3 different things. And they have a bunch of different attacks. They have reduced fire incoming damage, so like when you're fighting dragon boss and stuff like that, because it's an herbivore, it takes reduced damage. It can eat veggie cakes because it's an herbivore, which means it's going to gain way more health back than a Rex would. So in a battle one-on-one, Rex will get shredded by a Therizinosaurus. Now, first off, in real life, yes, they did look like this, which is creepy because their claws of death commonly get them referred to as the tickled chicken, the turkey. There's a lot of different names they go by, but these claws are I don't even know how to describe it. Dangerous, deadly, whatever you want to say. Now, a lot of people are under the impression that the double claw swing means they get 2 attacks. They do not. That is one motion. So don't believe people when they say that. If you get one, that's one. That's not 1 then 2. It's just a single motion. So even though it looks like you're getting 2 attacks out of it, that is not true. Now, one of those things that I'm sure you just saw is this guy gathers really good just general meat. It's pretty easy. This is an unleveled one at 225, which means it was tamed at 150. You can crank up the levels in this thing, and it's up to you how you do it. If you're going to make boss battle versions of these, you're probably going to want to crank the health up to about 20k. Stamina up just a little bit, not much. And then you probably, if it's my opinion, want to do just the rest into melee damage. It kind of depends on what you want to get accomplished with these things. They can be just overpowering monsters of death. If you want more of a grindy one, I would increase the weight just a little bit. But again, this is not the important part. This is the important part. They have the ability to add additional harvesting levels. Now, basically all this means is that when they're gathering something for PvE purposes, they will actually gather way more materials at an increased percentage. Now, I know that seems to be a little bit ridiculous. It's very similar to the moss chops in the regard that you can put specialized points into certain things, and they just go crazy. Now, I'm going to split this one down the middle, which you should never do, because you want a Therizino for each purpose. Now, delicate harvesting means things like fiber. And if you want to gather tons of fiber or things with your secondary attack, that is what you want to use for delicate harvesting. Whereas power harvesting is anything with that primary swing or that smash attack that you see right there. So let's go ahead and show you the difference. So there's a bunch more damage, obviously. But you can see that, okay, apparently he only had 32. But if you hit a tree, this is where it gets crazy. Let me heal this guy up first before we do that. Nope. By the way, I forgot to mention this. I'll mention it in a minute. It's a very popular technique. If you leave the Therizino on his wander mode, he will automatically harvest things. So that's kind of a cool concept. Alright, so let's go ahead and hit a tree. You saw that right. That's 229 wood that I just got. Now, there you go. Just so you can see what we're doing here. This is just me walking around and maybe 7-8 swings. So your beaver, your mammoths, all of those things are no longer useful. I just got in a total of 5 swings, maybe less than that, around 2,500 wood. Now the negative side, he doesn't carry at reduced rates. You're gonna have to have a storage box nearby. But obviously with that much wood gathering capability, you're not gonna need too much time anyways, so you basically just spend a little bit of time gathering a bunch of wood. Now there is a little trick to this. What you're going to do, if you put this guy on the back of a raft and go over to the swamp sections of the map, aka this area on Ragnarok, you can move him around and he can be permanently encumbered and just swing. Usually it's helpful to have 2 people with this, but it's a great way to get an absolute load of wood. Now I'm sure a lot of you already knew about that, but if you haven't, check out my video on that. It's pretty easy to do. Now, What else does the Therizino do? Because I keep saying this thing's overpowered, and you're like, cool, dude, he can gather wood. Thanks for that. Now, his secondary attack is his delicate harvesting. He can walk through entire fields of this fiber and come back with so much it's almost funny. So, what was that? Maybe 3 seconds? And I come back with 4,300 fiber? Yeah, it's that overpowered. This thing is just an absolute monster when it comes to gathering fiber. You can just go out for maybe 20 minutes and not need fiber for a month because, yeah, that's how it is. So, I mean, look at that. Let's see how much I just gathered. Yeah, there's 7,000 fiber right there. So, there's thing number 2 that he's overpowered at. Now, attack 3 is a tertiary attack. It's kind of like his bite attack. You can see him doing it right there. It's like a ground pound. Now, this is how he gathers a very large amount of berries. Now, you're going to notice that it's nothing superb, but it is actually pretty good. It's nothing just, out of the extraordinary, but for having like a one-trick pony, if you only have room for a few different tames, this guy is where it's at. Let's go ahead and show you why. I mean, that's less than 10 seconds right there, and I can probably feed a couple of trows worth of babies for, I don't know, like 8 hours with that much. I mean, that's crazy. That's some of those berries. I mean, I got a crazy amount, so keep that for what you will. I mean, everything you need can be accessed by using this Therizino, because all of the, all the important stuff at least, because wood goes to charcoal, fiber late game helps out a lot, thatch is useful, wood in general is just useful. You can use the kind of ground pound attack to get wood, but it's not very effective. I wouldn't use it personally. But obviously gathering things, this is just on a different level. Now, he also gathers insane prime meat. So if you do kill something like a T-Rex or a Stego or anything that requires, you to actually use something to get specifically prime meat, the Therizino is an absolute monster. So we're going to go ahead and kill a couple of things that require, but that help a lot to have a Therizino so we can get that prime meat out of him. Assuming, of course, we can find something. We're just looking for a Spino. Haha, there's always a Spino down here. All right, so the best thing you can do, now water is not the strong point of this guy. He's not a bad swimmer, but Therizinos are not what you want to be swimming around in. You basically just have to kill the Spino, and then you see it right there. There's 11 prime meat. Now, 11 prime meat from one swing is not bad. For those of you that collect prime meat, Giganotosaurus will probably collect about the same, but I mean, this thing is much more maneuverable and useful in everything. Giga is pretty much useful for meat running, and that's it. Meat running and then literal PvP purposes. But, I mean, if you're moving around, I mean, there's 3 trees, boom. I've just done if I'm a small tribe, I just did my harvesting that I need for the day. This guy is just a crazy monster of justice. I mean, that's my personal opinion. I love the Therizino because in real life, they were also pretty cool. At least we think they're cool. We can't necessarily go back and, check them out. But they're pretty neat tames. Now, obviously, we got this Diplo here. We're going to go ahead and try and get this Diplo taken care of. And you can see there is 16 prime meat right there. Not too shabby. They are pretty crazy creatures. I mean, they can gather pretty much everything. They will gather rare flowers for you. You do have to use that tertiary attack. They can pretty much gather anything that you need them to gather, except for stone. Now, another cool thing about these guys is they do have the ability to gather a load of scrap metal from enforcers and anything that's the metal-based creature on extinction. What you do in order to gather said things is you use their tertiary slam down and you gather an absolute load of metal. So I'm going to go ahead and kill this Spino, and I'll spawn an enforcer in. And when I spawn that enforcer in, it's kind of going to, you'll see what I mean. It's going to be a lot. Maybe we should just use defensive unit. That might be the best way to go about it. But they do gather I don't really know how to say any better than that. It's just they gather a lot. So you'll see what I mean. And defensive unit. There it is. I have it somewhere in my stuff. There it is. Okay. So defensive unit. So obviously this is what they look like. You can do a bunch of damage. They're pretty good soakers. And there's that. So I'm going to go ahead and use my tertiary attack, which is my C. That's a pretty good amount of metal. 75 metal, and if you're running around the city in extinction, they're everywhere. So you could kill and do a solid metal run with scrap metal by yourself with the Therizinosaurus. And it's pretty useful. So they're pretty good overall tames. Obviously, I still think you're better off using an Anki, but a Therizino is not like, it's one of those tames that if you use it by yourself, it's a pretty useful thing to have that access to get that load amount of metal. So you saw that 26 raw prime meat. You can just cruise through things out here, get meat, get berries, wood, and put it back on your boat. They are pretty much the ultimate solo to small guys tames because you're not going to really need anything else. They get meat, they get berries, they get wood, thatch. You'll need a Doedicurus and an Anki, but outside of that, those are pretty much the three things that you would need in order to survive by yourself or with just a couple of tribe mates, and just making these things crazy overpowered. So, and another Diplo, 27 prime meat. Let's do these two Spinos, and then we'll end this, and I'll kind of show you what we've gathered, and not trying to gather things, just existing on this map. It's a lot. All right. I think that's pretty much it. Let's go ahead and take a couple of swings here just for funsies purposes, and this is what we were able to gather. There's almost 1,000 hides, some berries, a load of meat, a crap load of prime meat, which you can cook, wood, everything you would need, and boom, gone. We'll drop that off on our supposed boat, and the Therizino is your friend. So I know they're a pain in the butt in the wild, but taming one of these things is probably one of the most valuable things you can do. All right, anyways, hopefully this video helps you out, and hopefully you go get yourself a Therizino. All right, teach.